I went to Japan and here are some things that I bought. News at 11. Kill boy. I have just returned from an epic trip to Japan where my mind was blown by many, many toy stores and many, many toy hunts. So I thought I would share with you just some of the amazing stuff that I managed to pick up in Japan. One thing I really wanted to focus on this trip was to bulk up my fairly moderate Ultraman collection.
M78 星雲の宇宙人からその命を託された早田隊員データカプセルで宇宙人に変身した
I've always been fascinated with Ultraman and I wanted to bulk up my collection a little bit, so I picked up as much as I could, and one thing that I picked up a lot of was these. These are from Bandai and these are sort of the 5.5 inch scale, very, very basic soft vinyl figures, and I picked up a bunch from the classic series. I found one of the anime Ultraman, and also I picked up a Shin Ultraman. I got a bunch more. I'll cut to some footage of them now. The cool thing about these figures is that they're pretty easy to find. They're very affordable, like $6 or $7 each, and they're super cool, and you can get a whole bunch of characters for not a whole heap of cash, which is really, really cool. So I wanted to pick a bunch of these up and make an awesome display of some of the classic Showa era Ultraman, some of the more random ones that I just like the look of. And part of the fun thing about Ultraman for me is that I don't know a whole lot about this franchise. I've been learning lots and watching lots of episodes to learn more about it, but at the end of the day, this is a show that's been around since 1966. It's basically the biggest superhero in Japan, and there's so many different incarnations of Ultraman and so many different costumes. It's fun to kind of not know everything about it and kind of just pick and choose based on the ones that I think look really, really cool. So these are some of the ones that I picked up. And I figured this time around I would also pick up some of the kaiju, some of the monsters from Ultraman. So I picked up, again, just a few that I thought looked interesting, not ones I necessarily knew much about, but ones that I just thought would look really cool on the shelf. So here are just a small selection of characters. Some of these I know, some of them I don't. That's Pigmon, sort of a friendly but annoying monster.
Pigmon.
This is one of the capsule monsters from Ultra 7, I believe. The capsule monsters were part of the inspiration for Pokemon, which is kind of cool. I'm not 100% sure who this guy is. I think he's a version of a monster from a much more recent Ultraman series, but I just thought it was so funny that he just has human clothes on, so I had to have him. He's one of the very early monsters, as are these two here. So just some of the amazing, weird and wonderful aliens from the Ultraman universe that I wanted to add to the shelf. I also picked up a few Kamen Rider objects, not many things, but I picked up this, again, just same scale action figure of the original Masked Rider, Kamen Rider. And in one of Japan's many hobby stores I found this awesome Kamen Rider little statuette that glows in the dark, which is very, very cool, so I added that to the collection as well, and that was only about $2. Pretty sweet! Sticking with the Ultraman theme, I also got a few bits of Ultraman paraphernalia, not necessarily toys, but things that will go in the Ultraman display. And one of the best things that I found was a series of different Super Eye Productions booklets and information books about different Ultraman series. For example, Ultra Q, the movie. This is from the anime, and this one, which I think is the best one, is from the original Ultraman series, and it's a picture book with a whole bunch of Japanese text. I think this may actually be a poster book, which is pretty amazing. I'll show you some close-ups of some of the pages. It's obviously one of the celebration issues that has info about a whole bunch of different Ultraman, some of the villains there, and then in the middle it's got this epic pull-out poster of all of the different Ultraman of the time, which is pretty amazing. These are the ones that I tried to bulk up my collection with, and also it's got some great posters all throughout, but at the very back it has an Ultraman cut-out mask, which obviously I'm not going to take out because this magazine is very old, but pretty cool! I went to this Subaraya Productions exhibition that just happened to be on while I was in Nagoya, which had a whole bunch of artifacts and costumes and pictures from the history of the Ultraman series. And one of the things I picked up, just because it was an exhibition exclusive, was this little sort of acrylic Ultraman standee with some of the classic characters on there, so I've got that on the shelf. While I'm not a big gamer, I did take the opportunity while I was in Japan to pick up some cheap Famicom games. Famicom being, of course, the original Nintendo Entertainment System over here in the West, and Super Famicom being Super Nintendo. So I picked up these two Ultraman, I think it's called Ultraman Club 2 and 3 cartridges. I have no way to play these. I just thought they'd be amazing sort of pieces of history, these beautiful coloured cartridges as well on the shelf. And then my favourite one, which I did look at several times before I finally bit the bullet and decided I had to buy it. This is from 1990, and this is the Super Nintendo, or Super Famicom, Ultraman game. Still in box. It's got the booklet in there and the game, so that's super awesome to have that little piece of history in my collection. Again, I believe a pretty terrible game. But a cool display piece, because it's something obviously that was never released here in Australia, at least not in this format, so that's just a cool little Ultraman keepsake to add to the shelf. Another kind of rare-ish and interesting thing that I knew I wouldn't be able to find here was in a store called Book Off, which is essentially a second-hand bookstore that also has toys and games and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. It's all in really amazing condition and usually pretty well priced as well. I managed to pick up this Ultraman live on stage finger puppet set for just a couple of bucks. So this would have been merchandise from one of the many Ultraman live shows from over the years. I picked this up and I just couldn't resist with the clear sort of see-through red plastic. Very, very cool. So I wanted to add that to your shelf. It's just sort of like an interesting talking piece, something that I'd never be able to find here in Australia. Now, this is the big one. This is probably the most expensive thing that I bought the entire trip. Like I said, a lot of this stuff was quite small and quite affordable. It's just sort of interesting things that I can't find in Australia that I wanted to add to my collection. This, however, is something I also bought at the Subaraya Productions exhibition, and this is a Maru-san toy soft vinyl Ultraman glow-in-the-dark edition. I haven't opened it yet, but I'm going to open it. As you can see here, there it is in all its glory, opened up. And this thing, I ummed and ahed about it, and I thought, I'm in Japan, I'm not going to have a chance to buy one of these very often, especially not this cool sort of special edition glow-in-the-dark one. So I picked this up, made sure it was very carefully handled on the way home on the plane. And it's amazing, it glows in the dark, and that's going to be pride of place in my collection. This is by, like I said, Maru-san Toys, which is the original soft vinyl Sofubi makers that made so many of the original Godzilla and Ultraman and various kaiju toys throughout Japan in the very, very early 60s and 70s. So very, very cool to have one of these modern versions of a glow-in-the-dark Ultraman. Sweet deal. I also picked up this amazing Kool-Aid cup. This vintage, awesome Kool-Aid cup from RPM Toys, which was one of the great places I visited in Nagoya. One of the very few places I actually went to find some amazing Western toys, including these California raisins. Look at these two California raisins singing ladies. That's just good shit. I couldn't help but pick up this Ninja Spawn figure that was in one of the Mandarake stores. It was $8. Western stuff is so cheap over there, and you don't see a lot of Spawn stuff anymore. At least not here where I live, so I picked this up just for a bit of fun. Spawn! Ninja Spawn! Why the hell not? Obviously there was lots and lots of Transformers available in Japan, so I had to pick up a few things, including this little mini, sort of like chibi style Rodimus Prime, which is sort of like a short little stumpy just Transformer. He's one of my favourite characters, so I decided to pick him up. But one thing that was definitely on my list while hunting in Japan was trying to find some Microman.
Microman は地球の正義と真実を守るため日夜戦い続けているのです。
So Microman is basically the smaller version of the Henshin Cyborg figure, which is basically like a see-through robotic version of the big G.I. Joes from back in the day. These in the future even got shrunk down even further and paired with the original Transformers toys when they were first released in Japan.
補給整備ドッグ司令基地としての役割を果たすバトルコンボイの登場でカーロボットの世界が変わる移動基地バトルコンボイ
Now this is one, I think, because of the condition, I think this is actually a repro one from the 90s, but I had to pick him up because he's just super cool. So there he is, my very first ever Microman, super good condition, with his amazing like sarcophagus little coffin thing as well. So really stoked to have that in my collection. Microman.
Godzilla, king of the monsters, alive, surging up from the depths of the sea on a tidal wave of terror.
And last but not least, I couldn't go to Japan and not pick up some Godzilla paraphernalia. So here's some of the amazing Godzilla stuff that I bought. Firstly, this. So stoked to find this. This is from, it's not super old, it's 1992, which I guess technically makes it vintage these days. And it's this amazing little remote control walking Godzilla. I don't know if this is an official one or a bootleg. I'm pretty sure it's official. It's got some pretty official looking stuff on it. But it looks pretty amazing, and let's take it out of the box, which got a little bit banged up on the way home. Let's take it out of the box and see if it works.
Godzilla, king of the monsters, it's alive! A gigantic beast, stalking the earth, crushing all before it, in a iconic cavalcade of electrifying horror.
Now, I was definitely on the hunt for some large Godzilla Sofubi, but I never really found anything that was sort of within the size restrictions of my luggage or within my price range. Everything was maybe a little too pricey or just too damn big. But I'm still on the hunt in the future, so be aware. But what I did manage to find was his amazing re-release of some classic Sofubi designs in what's called middle size. So I managed to pick up a classic original costume black and white Godzilla. This is a classic colors Gigan Sofubi. So that's going to go in the Godzilla display. Now this last one is definitely not in its classic colors, but it is pretty amazing. This is a color wave of Hedorah that I just thought was amazing, and is pretty similar to some very classic Sofubi colors. So I bought that one as well. So I'm going to open those up, put them on the Godzilla shelf with my maybe walking tiny Godzilla. Terrifying. So, that is just a few of the big things that I picked up on my Japanese trip. Didn't spend a hell of a lot of money, but had a hell of a good time, and brought back some amazing stuff from my Ultraman, my Godzilla, my Kamen Rider, my Kinkeshi, lots of fun soft vinyl and Sofubi, and fun, cool, amazing Japanese things that I'm very excited to have in my collection that I couldn't find anywhere else, but the amazing place that is Japan. So Japan, thanks for having me. I look forward to coming back and toy hunting again with a emptier suitcase and a bigger wallet. Until next time, stay ultra. Kill boy.